Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar today. We are here today to talk about broadcasts. My name is Lisa Viscuso and today I'll be your moderator and one of our presenters. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. The phone lines are muted and this is to eliminate any background noise throughout the presentation. We do plan to run about 30 to 45 minutes, allowing for a full Q&A at the end of the session. But don't let this stop you. Please be sure to log those questions throughout today's session in the chat box on your screen, and I'll be sure to get to all of those at the end. I did just want to mention that we will be emailing the session out after, so look out for that. But this is one of the greatest times here. I'm pleased to present my co-presenter for today. He's really the star of the show, Mike Gibbs. Mike is responsible for delivering amazing products to customers that help their organizational needs. Mike loves engineering and has been at Appspace for about 10 years. And Mike is also one of our product managers here. And a quick little bit about me. Again, I'm Lisa Viscuso. I'm responsible for all of our release communications for customers. I've been with Appspace for about 5 years. And one of the things that I love to do most is talking with customers. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we're going to kick it off, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what broadcast is. We're going to talk about when you would use it, and then Mike is going to walk through the live demo, which is my favorite part of today, and then we'll wrap it up with a full Q&A at the end. So what the flip is broadcast, as my good friend and colleague Mike here would say. Broadcasts allow you to quickly configure and deploy messages to several channels at once to reach the masses. With broadcasts, you can reach everybody at your organization, or you can target specific audiences across multiple locations. We launched broadcasts last month in February. So if you are a current customer of ours on this call today, you may have had the opportunity to already play around with it, and you may actually be fully using it. Also, if you're a current customer, you may be familiar with our alerts module. And if you've had the chance to play around with it, you quickly are probably realizing and seeing that broadcast is essentially alerts, but it's really taken to the next level as the capabilities for getting your messages out can be dispersed so much more broadly now with this new feature, all with the use of our platform. Alerts was always the foundation, when broadcast was created, but really broadcast is intended to go just beyond digital signage. And you aren't losing any of that functionality that you had with alerts. If anything, you're getting much, much more. With broadcast, you can share content via full screen takeover on devices, like digital signage or pop-up banners also on digital signage, but you can also disperse this same information via email, enterprise messaging like Slack or Teams, or even pin content within the employee app. So if you think about that for a second, you can take one message and you can share it across multiple channels to truly reach your desired audience, no matter where they are located. And that's pretty cool. So let's talk now quickly about why you would use broadcasts. There truly are different use cases. So first of all, broadcast content does differ from standardized content, as you would really be using this to draw attention to your viewers. And yes, oftentimes in an immediate state. You want to grab those viewers' attention to really pay attention to the message that you're trying to convey. And this does not mean it has to be something super urgent or critical, but yes, there are times that does happen. So let's talk about some of those. So for critical announcements, things like weather warnings, a hailstorm, for example, is about to blow through, or a fire alert of a fire in the building, or, I hate to even say this one, but some form of a security threat is happening. You simply can activate that broadcast and share it to the folks that need to know when they need to know. But on a more or less critical note, You can use broadcasts for standard announcements. For example, it's summer and you're having an employee appreciation barbecue, and you want to make sure that folks know what's happening and all the details surrounding it. You can simply create a broadcast message, send it to the specific users, share it on your screens, pin it or assign it as a banner takeover in the employee app, or email it out. Again, all through our platform with minimal clicks. So that same message is now being shared throughout all of your means of communication to keep everyone in the know. And that really is one of the key takeaways with broadcasts. A few other examples I can share are things like CEO announcements, special occasions like new hires or work anniversaries, or special messages for employees, thanking them for their hard work. I was actually talking to one of our CSMs last week, and she shared with me that one of her customers are using it daily to send out a message that it's time for a 15-minute stretch break. So that's it. Here's your 15 minutes, everyone get up and stretch. So I thought that one was pretty cool. So really the sky is the limit with broadcasts. But before we dive deep into the demo here, I just want to provide a quick visual. So let's just use an example of a fire alert in the building. So there's a fire happening and you need to make sure that everyone needs to know that they need to get out. So you can activate your broadcasts, and what you see on this screen here is full screen takeover or the pop-up banner. And then you can also go to the next slide here. You can send it to enterprise messaging. In this example, this is specifically Slack. You can share it via email. You can pin content in the employee app. And now you've really just deployed your message to all the channels to let the right folks know that they need to get out. On this slide too, you also will see push notifications. These are coming soon, probably within the next month or so. And push notifications can be configured and set from the employee app to push a message to our mobile app. And Mike will actually talk a little bit more about that, along with integrations during the demo. So I do just want to address this too quickly before we jump in, what is going to be happening with alerts, because I know a lot of customers have been asking. So alerts is still available now. We are going to be sunsetting that towards the end of this year. So if you do have active alerts, you're going to want to recreate those in broadcasts. And this is really just so you can truly continue to utilize the Appspace platform to its fullest potential. And Mike is going to show an example of how to do that. But if you have any questions on how to do this after today's session, we always have our knowledge center, and there is actually a full article there that can walk you through the step-by-steps on how to do that. But hopefully we'll be able to get to an example of that today. All right, so Mike, it is your turn. I'm going to kick it over to you, and now Mike's going to walk through a demo of broadcast.
Awesome, thank you so much, Lisa. Just I can see there's a green box around me, which means hopefully you can hear me okay. And we're just going to switch over to my screen here, and I'm just going to make sure I'm still logged in by just clicking on the dashboard there. So that's all my tech, security, and security checklist ticked off. So Lisa's disappeared. I guess that means Lisa's hiding behind her camera, which is fine. Lisa, it'll be useful to share your camera just so we can see your screen change if I
think we lost your audio, Mike.
And so is Lisa, so everything should be going well. Basically, what I'm going to do here is just give you a general overview of broadcasts, kind of all of the options that are available to you, the user interface and what that looks like. And then I'm going to take some of those use cases that Lisa presented in her presentation and try and recreate some of those inside of broadcasts and do things live here. Let's
Hey, Mike? Mike?
Kind of main areas of Appspace nowadays. We have the employee app, which you'll see is very different. It's an employee app which allows you to consume content as well as book places and space reservations and such. And we also have the admin console here, which as you'll see on the dashboard here, I have a slightly different look and feel with some buttons and a menu on the left-hand side. This is really where the management happens, and this is where
Mike, could I just stop you for a second? We cannot hear you on your audio there.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. Did it just cut out or like halfway
Yeah,
through?
It's been cutting out quite a bit, but let's try again. Let's go again. Sorry to the audience there.
All right. Of course, we didn't pray to the audio gods this morning. So that's something to remember for next time. Okay, so hopefully you can still hear me okay. If not, I can switch up microphones if needed. Just
we can hear you well now, Mike, so
yeah, okay,
it should
great.
be working.
All right, perfect. All right, so like I was saying here, I'm logged into the admin console, which is where you manage broadcasts. If you click on the menu on the left-hand side here, you'll get the broadcasts here. When you click on broadcasts, the menu here, you'll see a list of all broadcasts that you've created, or if you've not created any broadcast, you'll see a little picture there to say you've not created any, and you'll probably want to do that.
Mike, we're losing your audio again. I think maybe better. Mike,
is it still cutting out? Is it?
Yeah. I think maybe good to take off your headset and let's try via your computer.
Just try this headset.
Sorry to the audience here, but we would like you to hear everything, of course.
Okay.
I can hear you. I can hear you now. Hopefully this should work.
All right, so let's try this. If the audio cuts out there, it's not going to be the that'll probably be the internet rather than the headset. But all right, let's see if we can get on going here. So yeah, as I was saying, the broadcast management module here shows you on the left-hand side some filters. This allows you to filter broadcast based on location. So let's say I created a broadcast down in my London HQ here. I can do that filter, and I can actually filter out those broadcasts based off of where they are, where they were created and where they were targeted for. Obviously, I can see all my broadcasts that are happening across or have been created for the whole organization by making sure that I'm in the global location here and I'm selecting all locations on the left-hand side. Also down here, we have the ability to filter based off of active broadcasts. So let's say we have one active broadcast down here happening at the moment. If I click on that, you'll see that that welcome broadcast is active, and I can see that in the list here as well. If any broadcasts have been scheduled, I can also filter based off of that. So you can see here, we've set up a schedule for a broadcast to happen at 1 p.m. every day for 15 minutes to do your daily stretches, and we'll talk you through those use cases later on. And you can also see a list of all manual ones. You can have an overview here about how many broadcasts there are, what type of broadcasts that have been created, as well as being able to see any disabled broadcasts as well. And then you can see a full history of broadcasts when they were activated or when they were not activated here as well. And you can see here all morning we've been pretty busy making this demo up for lastminute.com in the morning here as well. So everything's going to run smoothly. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. You can actually also, from a history perspective, you can actually come down to reports here. If you click on analytics and you click on reports, we do actually have a report that you can generate either on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, which allows you to get a broadcast history report out of the platform. And you can specify what kind of columns you want in your report. You can say how long you want your report to go back for, what kind of data for the last 7 days, 30 days, for example. and I can filter out by the type of broadcast or the priority of the broadcast. And you can see if I click on generate here, that will actually show you a list of all of those broadcasts that have been created or activated in the last 30 days. And then you can name your report here, and you can share that with users, and obviously you can notify them via enterprise messaging or email when that report's been created as well. So that's a nice way of keeping on top of actually what is actually happening when you've created broadcasts and when they've been activated and deactivated as well. So just coming back into broadcasts, I'm just going to go through and quickly create one. But just before I do that, on the right-hand side here, you can obviously see a list of all my broadcasts. I can activate those broadcasts here. You can see very clearly what broadcasts are critical broadcasts and what ones are standard broadcasts, as well as having some other options on the right-hand side here, like edit broadcast. I can disable my broadcast. I can copy it and delete it from there as well. All right, so we're going to create a broadcast. Like I say, this is just a general overview of the user interface. Later on, we're going to go through this a few more times in a few different scenarios just to see the result of what that broadcast looks like. But this is really just an overview of how to create a broadcast and what options you have inside here. So you can see my first step, and we have a kind of a 3-step process here with a summary at the end. I have the ability to select what content I want to be able to add to my broadcast. Is it just some content that I want to select either from the content library, or do I want to upload an image or a video in here to have that content go out as a broadcast? Or I can create content using Appspace's cards or templates from here as well. You can see we've got an alert card there. So if I wanted to create an emergency broadcast, I can actually do that very quickly by selecting an alert and defining the type of alert, and then just clicking save. That will automatically create that card and populate that in here. And obviously you can have more than one piece of content in here. It's a very basic kind of order in which you can do. You can obviously drag things around here. So if I upload and select another piece of content from so we select this one, you can see here I can just drag things around and change the order of them, and I can remove them here as well. Each piece of content is set in its time. There's no way of configuring the time that that's played. That's why we have channel over here, which we'll talk about in a bit. But essentially each piece of content will play for 8 seconds and it will move on to the next piece of content. But obviously if there's a video in there, it will play for the duration of that video there as well. So it's just a nice, easy way for media to be able to just create or upload or select media from your content library and add that very quickly into here. So as you'll see through this demo, everything's kind of built around speed, and you can do things based off on how quick you are, how quick you need to be, or even pre-positioned broadcasts as well. So the kind of 2 scenarios there. I could put in a message here and say, hello world, I'm feeling extra creative today. So that's all I've got for me. And then I can define what kind of priority my broadcast is going to be. We have 2 priorities right now in broadcasts, a standard priority, which is, like Lisa mentioned, things like weather warnings, CEO broadcasts or company events or daily stretches, if you wanted to have that in there. That would be a typical use for a standard broadcast. And then for critical broadcasts, you want to reserve that for critical events like fire alarms or weather warnings or anything else that happens. That you want to be able to take over a standard broadcast. And that's kind of the priority, right? A standard broadcast will take over any content that's playing by default, any content that you've created and published to devices. A standard broadcast will take over that. And then a critical broadcast will take over any standard broadcast. No, is essentially overriding everything that is playing on the TV. So maybe there are 2 critical broadcasts or 2 standard broadcasts happening simultaneously. What we'll actually do in that scenario on devices, we'll just alternate the content between those 2 broadcasts. So if there's 2 critical, a fire alarm, if you're in an unfortunate event where there's a fire alarm going off, and then there's also a weather warning happening at the same time, that really is unfortunate because you probably have to go and stand outside in the weather for that occasion. But essentially you can do that and you'll have the 2 critical broadcasts displaying side by side after 8 seconds, I think, maybe, or at least when the content's finished, it will move on to the next broadcast and kind of circle through them. All right. The other options that I have here is obviously I can select a channel of content. This is really where I want to be a little bit more granular about how long pieces of content are going to be showing up. I can define times in playlists. I can define the order of a playlist, and I can also weight content in playlists as well. So that's really nice. You can actually pre-position a playlist like a daily stretch or company news, or if there's an event happening, maybe you want to create a channel that says, hey, we've got a company event that's going to be on our first floor in the London headquarters, and I want to take over all the screens in that area with this playlist of content as well. And you can do that. And then we have text-only broadcasts, and this is actually really useful text-only. It's a really super quick way of being able to come in here, create an alert, just putting in a title and text, and then defining your targets and pushing that out. And because it's just text-only, there's no content for the devices to kind of download and start playing. There's no video, there's no images there. It's just text, and you'll see actually it's very minute, the time difference between activating those types of broadcasts, but text broadcast is like a few milliseconds quicker than what a media or a channel would play onto a TV as well. So we can have a bit of fun with this one. We're going to actually just change this one to say, hello, Lisa. So she'll see this on our screen. How are you today? You always ask your colleagues how they're doing. All right, so then we get to define our targets. This is the second step in the process. And as you can see here, we can target devices and we can also target users. Targeting users allows you to target users in the employee app, as well as targeting them in the enterprise messaging. So if you've set up Slack, Microsoft Teams, or WebEx Teams as an enterprise messaging integration from Appspace, this broadcast will actually send that content directly into those enterprise messaging applications as well. On top of that, all right, there's still a bunch of people who use email, me sort of included in that. A couple of times I log into my email. It's probably not my go-to. I'm more of an enterprise messaging type of guy and looking at employee apps. But you can see I can target multiple people in multiple different ways here as well. So many to many. And I can specify all users. I can specify users based off of their user group or the user specifically. I can also define custom rules in here. So when I'm creating custom rules, maybe I want to include everybody in the admin group, but I want to exclude Lisa, for example. And why would I want to exclude Lisa? Because we don't want to do that, because we want to include Lisa in her how are you doing message today. There we go. I'm going to exclude myself. So as you can see there, based off of my rules, you can see the success criteria here is going to target Lisa. So when she logs into our employee app, she's going to get a message on our enterprise messaging, and she's also going to get an email to say, hey, Lisa, how are you doing today? The next we can do is devices, right? And as Lisa mentioned in the presentation, you can do device takeover, take over the whole screen, or you can select a notification for the device, which is just popping up on top of content that may be already positioned as a broadcast, as content you've already published to devices. And again, we can define, we want to have this go to all devices, or we can specify devices based off of device group, device locations, and also specific devices. And as I type in here, you'll see that automatically pops up with all the locations and the devices based off of what I'm typing in here into this field. Again, we also have custom rules in broadcasts. So you can include, for example, I want to include London. Let's say, can I do that? London, or I can, yeah, I should be able to include a device or a device group, and then I can also exclude that device from in here as well. So for now, we're just going to say all devices so we can see all of our screens. As you can see, I've got a few screens behind me and Lisa's got one behind her. So we'll see all of this content change. The final option here to configure is the schedule and also the API triggers. So with the schedule, you may want to be able to activate your broadcast manually, right? It may be there's something you just want to log into the console and click on the little button to say activate and deactivate as you need it. Or it could be something that you want it to be manual and then you're using API triggers to trigger that broadcast. So a good example of that is a fire alarm. If you have a good building management system, you can normally configure building management systems to use API triggers when alarms get triggered inside the building. So you can use API triggers to activate and deactivate broadcasts and kind of manage the life cycle. So when the fire alarm goes off, automatically that broadcast gets triggered and displayed around the building. The next option here is maybe I just want this to start now, right? It could be that this is an event that we're having in our building, and I've created the channel. I just need to be able to launch this event that's happening now, and I want to be able to end it at a certain time. I can also end based off of a duration here, or I can have a manual deactivation, right? So I'm going to start it now, but I'll choose and I'll log into the console when I want to deactivate it. You can also define the time zone you want that to be scheduled in as well. So if you don't want to do the maths inside your head, you can select the time here and have that launch in a specific time zone. All right, the other option here is to schedule. So we have the ability to start the broadcast at a certain date, and you can also define the time. You can also end the broadcast based off of the end time or the duration, just like we had before with now. We also have an option to reoccur broadcasts here as well. So this kind of takes the scheduling a little bit to the next level, where we can reoccur this broadcast to be activated every day. We can have it activated on certain days of the week and reoccur over certain days of the week. We can even say we want that on a certain day of the month. So based off of my start date here, I've selected the 16th of March, and this is giving me the option to say I want to repeat this on day 16 of every month. It may be that I want to actually say it's the third Thursday of every month as well. So we have those options in here for reoccurrence. And then for year, again, we have the ability to say, right, I actually want this to be the 16th of March every year, or the third Thursday of every March every year. And you can define when you want that to end. Do you want it to end after a certain amount of occurrences? It could be that you never want it to end and you just want that broadcast to keep carrying on until you come in here and deactivate the broadcast or delete it. Or you can specify a specific date that you want that broadcast to stop on as well. We also have an option up here for multi-day. So if I want the broadcast to start on a Monday and then end on a Tuesday the next week, then you can actually do that from in here as well. So for this one, I'm just going to say this is going to start now, and it's going to be based off of a duration. We're going to set this one to say it's going to be displayed for, say, 1 minute. Probably 1 minute's too long, but we can always deactivate it later. On the next screen, we have the summary. This gives me a nice idea about where this is going to go, how many people it's going to hit. And as you can see here, it's going to go to 5 devices. It's going to go to one employee, one special employee called Lisa, and we'll click save there. And that broadcast will now be activated. And as you can see here, some of these screens are already being taken over. We're just going to disable the welcome one because they could be displayed side by side. And as you can see here, I've got my devices now displaying the message, but also Lisa should be getting that message in her. Did I? Yeah, you have. Oh, you're pointing to it. I see. That's good. All right. So Lisa should have got an email. She should have got an enterprise messaging. So let's just see if that actually happened. I can come to my chat here, and you can see, hello Lisa, how are you today? So she actually got that message inside the her Microsoft Teams as well. All right, so let's go through some scenarios here so we can see this in a little bit more detail. Maybe we want to use some APIs in a moment as well. So as you can see here, I've got a bunch of ones that I created earlier. It's kind of a bit of a Blue Peter moment, and I guess if you're not based in the UK, you'll never know what that means. But it's basically one that I created earlier, ready for a show that I'm doing. And that's the analogy. You can see here I've got one called warning. That's a manual trigger, and I can maybe use the API to trigger that one later. But what we'll do is we'll actually just create some stuff off of the top of our heads. So this is always dangerous for me because I'm not a massively creative person. So what I'm going to do is just select some content, or actually I'm going to upload some content. And based off of the content I can see in here, I'm going to come up with a story here. Okay, there we go. That's a funny one. All right. So this is a, let's say this is going to be a broadcast to my London headquarters to say, everybody, today we've put VR headsets on your desk and we're all going to meet virtually in a big event with a headset at your desk. Rather than doing it physically, I don't feel like it's a bit beside the point to all going to an office and meet virtually, but anyway, let's do it for the fun. So we're going to have a virtual meetup. And maybe we ship these out to people across the globe, right? Maybe these are people that we've shipped them a little box with a VR headset, and they can also join in this little party that we're going to have. So it's a virtual meetup, and you can join using the VR headset that we gave you. What a lovely company to give all of their employees VR headsets. Appspace could take note, maybe. Or certainly make my daughter happy when she's of age. All right, so now we're going to say, right, actually, this is going to go out to all devices. So people across the whole of my organization is going to get this message on all of their devices. And then I'm also going to select this to all users. And rather than it being a notification here, I'm actually going to have this as pinned content because it's important, but it's not really important that people need to see this as the first thing they see inside the employee app. But I do feel like it is important enough to send them an enterprise message and an email as well. So I can click on next here, and I'm going to start this right now, and we're going to end this after, let's say 30 seconds. So I'm going to click on save here. So I have 30 seconds to show you the employee app, which I don't know why I gave myself a time limit, but there we are. So if I switch over to the employee app here, you can actually see on the left-hand side, under featured content, I have my virtual meetup. And you can see also the content behind me has also changed to that, that nice image I uploaded. And if I click on virtual meetup, I can see a nice, the text, the title and description I've entered into the broadcast, as well as the image that I entered there as well. And what will happen after 30 seconds here is that you'll notice that my TV and Lisa's TV is deactivated. And if I just refresh my employee app as well, you'll notice that that broadcast should no longer be displaying in there as well. So it's automatically removed itself from the employee app automatically. Even though it's showing up in my enterprise messaging app, if I do click on that content, it will probably try and launch me into Appspace where that content is no longer active. And you'll see that in a minute. It's going to ask me to log in here. But even though it's not active, it still allows me to get to that piece of content just so I can see when it was running. But you can see actually it's not activated. All right. So our next scenario is maybe we want a CEO broadcast. So rather than doing this as just a one piece of content, I'm actually going to set up a channel here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, you can see I've made one already, but I'm going to do this from scratch. So this is my CEO broadcast. I'm going to select a nice little icon here. It's going to be heart, purple, so I can make it, so I can distinguish it in here very easily. And I'm going to add some content. So what I'll do is I'm going to add some content from my content library. The first piece of content I'm going to have is this kind of holding screen. And then the next piece of content I'm going to have is going to come from my common library, and it's going to come from Lisa's CEO broadcast video that she created. So when I add that into my channel, you'll see that I've got a piece of content here, and it's going to play that video for 11 seconds afterwards. And then what I'll do is come over to my broadcast, click on create, select channel, I can then select my channel. I can select my CEO broadcast channel and say, please welcome Lisa for our company broadcast. And again, that's not really critical messaging, so I'm going to leave that as standard. And again, I'm going to select this to go to this time specific devices. And I'm going to find my devices in here. I'm going to select all of the devices in my location. So rather than having it going out globally, I'm just going to have it go into these devices here. And then rather than going to all users, I'm going to specifically select some users here. And again, I can select an admin group, all users or specific users in here. So I'm going to say, let's say it's just me and Lisa in this account. So it's kind of all users, but you get the idea, I think. And again, this is going to be pinned content inside my employee app. And this time I'm going to schedule this content to come on. This is where it starts getting tricky because I'm going to try and schedule this to come on now. So it's going to be 3:35. 37. So that gives me 1 minute to stop talking, and I'm going to have this finish at content end, so it'll actually play the duration of the content and then it will finish. So we're going to do that. Click on next, click on save. And now I do have to actually talk for 50 seconds. Kind of shot myself in the foot here. Well, we can do this, it's no problem. So, oh, actually, it's already gone active there. Is it already? Yeah, it's already active behind me. So maybe my clock is slightly off. So my broadcast active,
That's the video that made me TikTok famous, Mike.
That's right. You did, yeah. So if you want to follow Lisa on TikTok, she's definitely there. That's right. Yeah, so like I say, that was activated and then it deactivated after the content had played. Which is really nice. That means you kind of know that content is going to play for the entirety of the channel, and then at the end of the channel, it'll automatically drop off and stop playing. All right, so let's start getting a little bit more complicated now. I'm going to create a warning. In fact, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a fire drill here. Let's do that. So again, I'm going to use my alert template. You don't obviously have to use the alert template. You can use any template inside your Appspace template gallery. So you can use any of your communication templates in here. You can use any of your data feeds. So if you wanted to, automatically take over TVs with some Power BI dashboards or some Salesforce dashboards, or if you wanted to pull in some feeds from social media. So as you're, if it's a live event and you're creating some Instagram posts during that event, you could actually have your broadcast display our Instagram card and display content during your event. So just for this one, I'm going to select my alerts. And I'm going to set this one as fire alarm. Click save. I'm not worried about putting a description in there, but this is a critical. So I'm going to select this as critical. I'm going to do this to all devices for all users. It's going to be a notification. I'm not going to worry about sending too many messages to Lisa on our enterprise messaging because she'll end up blocking me. And then I'm going to set this as manual. And what I'm going to do is actually set this as an API trigger. With API triggers, you have a couple of options here. So with API, you have what we to use our API, we have kind of some security there, right? Not everyone can just go and launch a URL at our cloud and start launching broadcasts. So we have the ability to create an access token. An access token can be created from an integration from under. If you go into log into Appspace here, in fact, I'll quickly show you on this tab. Go down to integrations. You can actually select API tokens in here and create an API token. That will give you some keys that you can use to then get an access token to activate and deactivate a broadcast. That requires multiple steps, right? To programmatically integrate your third-party system to trigger Appspace using our API trigger. So something a little bit easier here is actually, and I still want a bit of security, I can put in here a really secure password. And Appspace 123, for example. So when I trigger my API, I actually have to pass that into the body of my API call. Or if I'm not worried about security so much, because it is a unique URL that gets generated, you can actually have this just as a require no authentication. We click on next and save. And what that'll do is with my alert, and I come back to schedule here, you'll see that it's automatically created some URLs for me to activate and deactivate that broadcast. And you can also trigger it from a browser. So if you wanted to give this URL to somebody, this is very dangerous to do on a live webinar. But if I was to copy this URL into my browser with no security, all 300 participants could essentially trigger my broadcast. So I'm not going to do that. I didn't think it was too wise. Maybe it's a bit of fun we can have at the end to see how many times we can spam our screens. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as an API trigger. Again, if you're really quick with your Postman, you can do this as well. So I'm just going to paste my, in fact, I'm going to copy the broadcast trigger there. And if I click on send in Postman, you'll see that got an OK response back, and automatically my TVs have been taken over with that broadcast. And similarly, I can put in here deactivate and click on send, and now that's deactivated it. So as you can imagine, if you was to integrate this into a fire alarm system or a red button or anything like that, if you want to see a demo of a red button, you can go and head to our website and see me, my ugly face on there, pushing a red button with some broadcasts happening, which is, the shortest video I've ever done in my life, but it's still quite effective in the way that it works. And it looks like some people are already having fun with my broadcast here as well. So good job, whoever you are, on activating and deactivating this broadcast. That's good. So what we'll do here is we'll just delete that one so people can't just keep spamming our screens all day. So I think that's it, all I have for the demo. I'm going to hand back over to Lisa now to do some Q&A, and if there are any questions, and try and answer those as well. I'll keep sharing my screen meanwhile. Maybe I'll bring back the presentation.
Perfect, thanks, Mike. Actually, Mike, if you want to maybe keep your demo screen up in case any of the questions are related to that. We do recognize we only have 2 minutes left, so we do understand if you have to drop, but we did get a bunch of questions, so we are going to just try to plug through some of these. So Mike, the first one, how does this work with advanced channels?
That's a great question. So advanced channels, if you're displaying advanced channels on your devices, then obviously broadcast will take over any advanced channel. So broadcaster will override any advanced channel. What you can't do is, under channels here, is to select an advanced channel. You can only select a live channel or a playlist channel.
Perfect. Are there any plans for this to come to private cloud?
Yep, private cloud is going to get this very, very soon. And if you want to get this right now, it's actually behind a feature flag on your private cloud. So you can reach out to your customer success manager or contact at Appspace, and they can request for it to be enabled today. Or if you just want to wait until your AC release meets the version that we went GA, which I think was AC 53, then you'll automatically get it. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about broadcasting videos a little bit? Like what file types? Is there a maximum length?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can select any video file you like, any video that's supported natively by Appspace anyway. So mostly MPEG-4, and obviously you can define a resolution. Essentially, it's really down to the device to decode the video. So you really still need to be cognizant of the device capabilities of decoding that video, as well as live stream. So for example, a Chromebox won't display a multicast IPTV video, whereas a BrightSign device will do that. So if you're defining a live feed in here, you need to make sure you've selected a HLS feed as well as a multicast UDP feed.
Great. Do broadcast API triggers support authentication?
Yep, we covered that. That's there's two types of authentication: a passcode or API authorization.
I have somebody asking about scheduling broadcasts throughout the day. Is that possible?
That's a good question.
For different shifts specifically is the question.
Yeah, you can obviously create as many broadcasts as you like. So you can have one broadcast scheduled for a certain time of day, yeah. But you can't do it for during the day just now. But that's a good feature request, and certainly be sure to email your customer success manager about that if that's something you're looking for, because we can always add that to our feature request list and prioritize it.
Can a Zoom link be broadcasted?
I don't know if we've got a Zoom card. Do we have a Zoom card in here? Feed. We do have a Zoom card. So we have a Zoom recording. I don't think we do live video. I think it is technically possible, but I think you basically need the HLS stream for the Zoom. And I think Zoom potentially do provide that. So I'm going to say maybe. If you really want a definitive answer, we can certainly email that out to you. Yeah.
We just lost your video, Mike.
Yeah. It's fine.
So that's probably the same answer then for Google Meet live stream. Same answer.
Yep. Well, Google Meet. Essentially, we do have a YouTube card here. So if you do go live into YouTube, obviously we can consume that. So that's a possibility as well.
Can broadcast be used as some sort of a screensaver?
So we don't actually have a desktop screensaver client today. That is something that is on our roadmap with no defined date just now. But obviously, if you're interested in that client, you definitely need to reach out to, again, email your CSM, your customer success manager for Appspace, or your sales guy to say that you're interested in that feature, and we'll add you to the list. The more people that are interested in that, the more priority it will get. But it is something we're looking to do. It's not on our immediate roadmap, which means it's at some point down the road. Whether or not that's going to support broadcasts, potentially, it does make sense, but it's something that we would need to consider. Right, there are other alternatives here. You will get a notification from Microsoft Teams or email if you're emailing your employees through the broadcast, but also we're going to support push notifications to your desktop app as well in the near future.
And how about SMS?
So SMS again is on our kind of medium to long-term roadmap. Again, it's going to be based off of priorities, how many customers and how many customers want to use that feature. But again, it is something there. It's just that we've not done the integration into our SMS provider just yet.
Okay. All right. So I know we are very over. I think we'll end it here, but there are a bunch more questions, and what we will do is we'll make sure that the right people follow up with those whose questions didn't get asked. So I do want to thank everybody today for attending. Sorry for the little tech hiccup in the beginning between me and Mike, but we got it all figured out, so we appreciate your patience. And thank you, Mike, today for presenting, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.